Adam, next time we got to have some waiting music.
Can't you do that right now? I thought you were a pro. Can we get some?
All right, fine.
Let's hear it.
Jeopardy comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about I've Been Waiting by Foreigner?
Ooh. All right. All right. I'm feeling that too.
Waiting on a Friend by the Rolling Stones.
I'm thinking Waiting for Tonight by J-Lo, but that's just me.
Oh, totally pivoted. Maybe we'll give it about 2 more minutes and then we'll go. All right. Uh-huh.
The beauty of being a co-host.
Was that you, Kenny? Oh boy. Beautiful. Hey, Benji, I see you, buddy. Thanks for tuning in. All right, Anya, maybe 60 seconds and we'll roll, okay? Heather, 60 seconds, and then I'll bring you in. Does that work?
Adam, do you want me to keep admitting people after the meeting has officially started as well till we reach our cap?
Yes, please. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. First off, okay, got it, Kristen. Thanks for making me pivot right off the bat. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I feel like we're very, very fortunate to have 4 of the USA Hockey staff joining us tonight. I guess tonight, this afternoon for them. But we have Kristen Wright. She's the ADM manager for female hockey out of Colorado Springs. Kenny Roush, the director of youth hockey, also out of the Colorado Springs. Joe Bonnet, he's an ADM regional manager and actually our ADM regional manager here in Texas. You guys met him in the spring, I believe it was. Seems like 30 years ago. And we also have Heather Mannix, who's also an ADM manager with female hockey. So lots and lots of hockey knowledge, coaching knowledge, development knowledge. And, you know, I think the best part is you guys get to hear somebody new talk about hockey, new ideas, new ways of doing things, what's up to speed. I know we're going to have coaches on here that are also going to be learning. I'm going to be learning as a hockey director. You know, we're just real excited to be on them. So we're actually going to start with Kenny Roush. He's going to talk what we like to call development myths, things that exactly that. And he'll, I'm sure he's got some stats for us. And I've known Kenny, fortunately, for many years now, and he's been a huge, huge help with me being able to learn. So we'll pass it off to Kenny.
All right, thanks, Adam.
You got it.
So I got to do a little screen check. Actually, no, I don't need to do a screen share because can everyone see my screen? If you see my
Yeah, we can.
video. So if you go to my Brady Bunch box and you click on the 3 dots, and if you hit pin to first screen, that will make my image large and take up most of your screen, so you'll be able to see what I am talking about. So like I said, Adam said, we're going to talk about some development myths, and I'm going to keep this short. This is an abbreviated version of a different PowerPoint that I do. But these are the common myths that we see in youth sports that people in their gut probably know are true, but a lot of times kids, parents, coaches are afraid that they're going to fall behind or whatever it may be, and don't listen to the little man on the shoulder that's telling you that if this doesn't seem right, it's probably not right. And so the myths are that you have to be on the best teams to develop, which completely not true. You can develop on any team you're playing on. You have to excel early in your sport. You have to play hockey 12 months a year, or whatever sport 12 months a year. You must specialize before age 12. You have to travel extensively. You must play more games, and you must excel at a position early, right? We know these things to be not true. And no matter what sport you look at, the highest level of that sport is littered with players that don't match up to these things, right? Yes, there's a LeBron James in the world. There's a Sidney Crosby. There's a Connor McDavid, right? They're not normal people. There's not many of them. They're called generational talents for a reason. But even when you look at them, right, who can tell me what team Connor McDavid played on when he was 10 years old? And if you raise your hand, I'm gonna call you a liar, because I doubt you can. I have no idea. Do you think the Edmonton Oilers cared when they drafted him number 1 overall? Not at all. Right? So playing on the best team or wherever you are is a myth. He was a multi-sport athlete. Sidney Crosby, multi-sport athlete. LeBron James, multi-sport athlete. But LeBron James quit basketball halfway through his career. He could have went and become a starting tight end in the NFL the next day. He's because he's that much of a freak of an athlete. So we're going to look at a couple of these things, right? And here's some of the examples of you don't have to play on the best teams, right? When you look at the top 100 scorers in the National Hockey League, 42% of them last year weren't even in playoff teams, right? 40%, 42 guys, right? Because they have to play for bad teams, like the Blake Wheelers of the world, the Johnny Gaudreaus, the Clayton Kellers, Barzal, and Trocheck. They've become elite players because they're not on the best teams right away, and their teams are struggling, so they get to play a lot, right? They get to play a lot. If Johnny Gaudreau, when he broke into the league, was part of either the Penguins or the Blackhawks, he wouldn't have broken into the league as a 22, 23-year-old hockey player. He would have had to go to the minors for a bunch. But instead, when he went to Calgary back then, Calgary wasn't very good. They were a last place team. So they gave him a chance to play. Right? I talk about Chris Kunitz and myself an awful lot. I won a national championship in college. I played on the best team. It did not mean my development had me ready to go to the National Hockey League, or even the American Hockey League for that. But, Chris Kunitz was actually on one of our coaching clinics this year. He was a 21-year-old freshman, went to Ferris State. Right? Ferris State's a good team. They're not the best team. Right? So as a 21-year-old, he goes into Ferris State and gets to play on the power play, first or second line, plays a ton for 3 years, then signs a contract. And I asked him on our call, and I knew the answer. I said, why didn't you go to college at 18? I wasn't good enough. I wasn't very big yet. I hadn't grown, right? Played on an average midget team at 18 years old. And then he went on to tell me, I didn't even become a regular in the National Hockey League until I was 26, right? 26 years old. And then I talk about Alvin Kamara. Anyone know where he went to college? This is college football. Anyone know where Alvin Kamara played college football? No one?
Tennessee.
He graduated he played at Tennessee. Do you know where he went first?
Alabama.
He went to Alabama, was the 4th string running back on the best team. His running back mate was Ingram. 4 years later, right? He couldn't play at Alabama, goes to Tennessee so he can play. 4 years later, they're both in the backfield of the New Orleans Saints. So be careful of always trying to be on the best team. I won't even talk about Bo Jackson and Steph Curry a little bit. Steph Curry played at Davidson College. We know that, right? And everyone thought he was too small, relied too heavily on the outside shot, but his brother was the stud in high school, right? And now Steph's the face of the league and his brother's the sixth man coming off the bench. And obviously the Vegas Golden Knights, all those guys were castaways, right? And they became a really good team. So let's see if the clip will play from Mike Babcock. See if we can hear this. Had some audio issues. Yeah, not playing. So basically Mike Babcock saying there, play at the level you should be at. Don't rush to get to the next level, right? Play at the level you want to be at and be a dominant player, because we get caught up in winning, right? We think we need to win, and winning is not development, right? Winning is not development. You just forget short-term success leads to long-term failure, right? Excelling early, right? Here's a nice little picture. If this young man showed up to your baseball team tryouts, you would not be very excited. Right? He does not. I showed this to my dad. I said, if this kid comes to our baseball team when I was 10 years old, what are you doing with him? My dad says he's playing right field, hoping the ball doesn't get hit to him, right? Because he's chubby, right? Looks a little out of shape. He's got the Kareem goggles on. He obviously doesn't have great eyesight, right? So he doesn't look like a great athlete, but this becomes Noah Syndergaard, right? Wasn't the best player early. You follow pro athletes on Twitter, they almost all to a T. Like, I wasn't the best 12-year-old. I wasn't the best 15-year-old, right? But I might be the best 26-year-old. So don't be so worried about being the best early, because late bloomers are normal, right? Those people that I talked about earlier, LeBron, Sidney, Connor McDavid's, the Jack Eichels, they're not normal people. You don't walk down the street and see a lot of 6'8", 270 guys, has 270-pound ripped guys walking past you, right? They're not normal people. So when we talk about excelling early, if you look at the National Hockey League by draft round where they were picked, 31% of the league are first round picks, right? So only 31% of the league. Think about that, right? Percentage of first rounders that make a career is less than 50%. That's first rounders. The next biggest population is undrafted players at 17% of the league. Right? So I'm not going to say you're better off being undrafted than a second round draft pick, but you have an equal chance of making the National Hockey League, of not getting drafted until age 20 as you are as being drafted at age 17 or 18. So don't be in a rush there. So, and again, excelling early, these are guys who are fourth round or later draft picks. You could make a pretty nice hockey team out of that. And one of the ones I always like to point to too is Marty St. Louis, who had over 1,000 career points, over 900 of them after the age of 27. Right. And he's another guy who came out of college as a 22-year-old or so and couldn't crack the league. Right. There was a time where you could have had Marty St. Louis for $1 as a National Hockey League general manager. It cost Tampa Bay $1 to pick him up from Calgary. So again, sixth round picks, some really good hockey players there that didn't think were good enough when they were 18 years old. And this might be tough to read, but I'll talk about Joe Pavelski. I saw Joe Pavelski play when he was 17 years old, 18 years old. I'm sure Joe Bonnet did too. And he was a nice player, but you certainly didn't look at him and say, in 15 years, he's going to go down as one of the top 10 American players of all time, right? Because if you see Future Outlook, says he'll enter the University of Wisconsin for the 04-05 season, where he'll have to battle hard to become a regular in the lineup due to skating concerns. However, he has 4 years of college hockey until the Sharks have to make a decision on whether to sign the Wisconsin native, of which time his skating concerns may be a thing of the past. Currently, he appears to be a long shot to make the National Hockey League. Right? He should become a solid third or second line center in the American Hockey League. I think he's doing okay for himself, right? As a kid who was a long shot to make the National Hockey League at 18, 19 years old. He wasn't drafted until he was 19 in his second year of eligibility, right? He's our Tom Brady. Right? He's a seventh round pick, 200 something draft pick, just like Tom Brady was. And again, when you look at players who were at our national camps when they were younger, right? At 14, Seth Jones wasn't even the best defenseman on his team. The kid who was better than him went on to score 3 goals in Division III college hockey, right? So we all know that these kids they're pretty good players at young ages, but they're not the best players, and they go on to do some really, really good things, right? Specializing before age 12 Doesn't have to happen. When you look at football, anything, right? National championship last year in college football, or 2 years ago, multi-sport athletes, 82%, 82%, 70%, 79%. I think last year in the NFL draft, it was 90%, 97% of the first rounders were multi-sport athletes. The NHL just commissioned a study with all of its players, and lo and behold, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it's close to 95% were multi-sport athletes and through the age of 12. And it was as high as 75% through the age of 16, right? So kids should be playing other sports as often as possible. And then the last one I just want to talk about real quick is that you have to excel at your position early. I love when mom and dad tell me that they have an awesome 11-year-old who's a natural born center. Because what I like to do is we have one of the things I get to do is what pleasure of my job is I help oversee our national player development camps for our top 16, 17-year-olds. So I get my 17-year-olds in a room and there's 100 forwards there. And I say, who's the center? How many hands do you think go up? Close to 75, right? So 75, we're trying to pick a team to make a national team to go overseas and play in a tournament. And I ask one of those kids who raises his hand as a center, who's your favorite hockey team? And let's just say he says the Detroit Red Wings. I said, awesome. So you go to camp, the Red Wings draft you next year when you're 18 years old. They bring you to camp when you're 19, 2 years from now. You look at the depth chart. They've got 4 returning centers, 4 other draft picks at center, 1 returning right wing, no draft picks at right wing, 2 returning left wings, no draft picks at left wing. Are you sure you're still a center? Kid can't shake his head no fast enough, right? When we look at these guys, Jorge Posada, Hall of Fame catcher, didn't start catching until junior college. The great story of his, if you Google it, his dad tells the story. He played junior college from Puerto Rico, went to junior college in Miami somewhere, I believe, and he was a shortstop. And he did get drafted as a shortstop in like the 60th round by the New York Yankees. Well, the next year they took another shortstop who turned out to be okay. And his dad told him after that draft, Jorge, you will never play shortstop for the Yankees. What are you talking about? They drafted me. I have a chance. Listen, they just drafted a kid named Derek. He's going to be the shortstop for the Yankees. You're not going to be the shortstop for the Yankees. And so he's walking out to practice a couple of days later, and their catcher takes a foul tip off his hand, and they don't have a catcher for the day. And he hears the coaches talking. What are we going to do? He goes, I'll try catching. Hall of Fame career later, right? Trevor Hoffman goes in the the Hall of Fame as one of the best relievers of all time. He was a shortstop in college, could hit a ton in college, got to the minor league, couldn't hit a lick, right? He was hitting about $180 or low 200s. And they said, you got a pretty strong arm. Want to try pitching? Sure. So the first 2 years of pitching, he's throwing gas, right? His famous pitch was the changeup, because 2 years into his pro baseball career, he's playing beach volleyball and dives for a ball, lands on his shoulder, and his arm goes dead. Can't crack 85 miles an hour anymore. So he switches from a flamethrower to a changeup artist, and he goes from a shortstop to a Hall of Fame relief pitcher. Drew Doughty, Brent Burns, Bufflin, all played forward until 14, 15 or so years old. And then the last one I like to talk about is Rasmus Dahlin. I had an awesome conversation with his father, who coaches in the Swedish Elite League. And he was telling me how in Sweden, they play cross ice hockey until they're 12. Yes, you heard me correct. Cross ice hockey until you're 12. They don't keep standings until they're 14. And they just teach their players to play hockey. So I asked him, your son is about to be drafted #1 overall in 2 months. When did he become a full-time defenseman? He looks at me and goes, last year. He was a full-time defenseman for a year. It's not to say he didn't play any defense, right? But he played defense, he played forward, he played center, he played wing, he played everything. He even tried some goalie, right? But as a 16, 17-year-old, he said, I want to play defense. And if you watch the way he plays, as his dad likes to tell me, he lines up at left D, right? So don't worry about positions. Worry about learning how to play the game, what we call positioning, right? Not positions, positioning as far as the 4 roles of hockey is I have the puck, my teammates have the puck, I'm defending the puck, or I'm defending away from the puck. And all positioning is where you are in relation to the puck, your teammates, the other team, and any other obstacle on the ice, i.e. the net, referees, broken stick, whatever it may be. So those are the things we need to worry about if you really want to talk about development, right? right? Don't focus on these things that I just talked about because they'll just lead you down the bad path. And yes, while it may work for some, very few, right? Very few specialize early and such. And, I look at Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was an early specializer, played golf since he was 3. Yes, he's done pretty well and won quite a bit. But you look at him now as a 45-year-old and you look at his body, it's a disaster. 10 back surgeries, 7 knee surgeries. He's a complete disaster. And then throw in the mental piece as well with all the pressure he's had on him. Obviously, I'm not going to psychoanalyze Tiger, but I think we can all agree that, he's had some issues, right? And he's not the only one. The more well-rounded you can be growing up, the less likely that's going to happen. So that's all I had for us, Adam, for development myths. If I'm not sure if Heather's back yet or if I'm turning it on who I'm turning it over to. Oh, there she is. Welcome back. So you're up, Heather. Right, we're gonna save questions till afterwards. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just put some in the chat, everybody, but if you have a question for the panel, we'll do a Q&A at the end, kind of panel session. So please send to me the direct messages and I'll sift through them and make sure we're asking them kind of in a orderly fashion, if you wouldn't mind. So if you want to ask questions for the end, send them Adam Powell direct message on the chat. And I introduced her earlier, but you guys might have been late joining, but Heather Mannix is an ADM manager for female hockey with USA Hockey. And she's going to talk about a whole topic, and she should be taking over the screen now. Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, Adam. Can I get, because I got kicked out, I don't have co-host ability, so I gotta get those back so I can share my screen.
Yeah.
Gotta love technology. It's my best friend these days. All right. So I'm gonna give a quick overview of, let's see here, where you guys went. A quick overview of a study that was done out of the George Washington University that I was lucky enough to be a part of. Get you here. Let's see if it works. Okay. So this study was really focused. So like I said, it was out of the George Washington University. Dr. Amanda Visick was the one who was the principal investigator of the study. It was a 3-year study that looked at what makes playing sports fun for kids. We were able to publish a lot of different scientific journal articles from this study. And so we're going to quickly kind of go over all of those different findings that came from just a single study. And we also have been working with the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation as well, integrating this research into their coaching education program. And we've started to integrate it as well into our own ADM and our coaching education program. And so the big question here, and this is one of the most important questions that we need to find the answers to, is what is fun? What we do know about it is it's the #1 reason why kids play sports across the board. If it's not fun, they're not going to want to play anymore, right? But what is it actually, and how do we as adults start to create this experience? And what do we need to look for as parents in this experience for our kids? Because we definitely know when we're having it, right? And we definitely know when we're not having it. But for us as adults, we need to figure out how do we create this experience for kids? Because A, we want to keep them involved in the game, and B, we want to get them to develop to their highest potential. And so I know that as adults, we have this fear that if we just let our kids just go out there and have fun, right, we're going to end up with these kids out here. And we can't just let them just go out there and have fun, because this isn't going to help us win games. This isn't going to help our team become better or our athletes become better. We can't just let them go out there and have fun all the time. And one of the reasons why we think that is that we really kind of, as adults, make these misconceptions that we think fun is synonymous with goofing off, right? Or it's really important for the young kids, but once we start to get to a certain age, then we have to take things more seriously. And another reason is because we think that fun is mutually exclusive from athlete development, right? So there's these two separate things. If they're having fun, if we want to go on the elite pathway, right, and we want our kids to develop to the best potential that they can, then it's not all fun. We can't, if you want to have fun, go play rec, go play house. But if you want to be an elite athlete, then this is serious and it's not fun. This is a very common misconception that we really have to fight against as adults if we want to keep our kids developing and in the game. So how exactly do you define fun? Youth sports is this really unique experience that us as adults we're responsible for creating this environment. But how often do we actually just ask the kids, what is it you want out of this experience? And it's so important that we do that because again, if we don't know what they want, then how are we making sure that we have that really fun experience for them? And so that's exactly what this study did, was we went out there and we asked kids to list all the things. So we said, one thing that makes playing sports fun for players is, and we had players list everything they could think of. Just finish this sentence and list as many things as you can think of. We did the same thing with parents and coaches as well. And so we gathered a ton of information. And what we found was something that was kind of crazy when we thought about it. So we found that talking and goofing off with teammates, yep, that is a part of fun. We found that winning, yep, absolutely a part of fun. These are, as adults, we think that these things are the most important, right? Or these are the things that we identify very quickly that are associated with fun. But what we found was that there was actually 81 specific actions and behaviors that these kids identified that make up this fun experience, right? And so when you take a look at this, it's kind of a little bit overwhelming, I understand. But if you look at the words that are up on the screen, you'll notice that a lot of them are pretty common sense, right? But there are some things that we may not have associated with fun per se. So we have competing, we have, working hard, trying your best, scrimmaging during practice, small area or partner in small group drills. So there's a ton of different things that kids identified that create this fun experience that now we as adults, we have a roadmap, if you will, so that we can actually create this experience for them in this environment. And so when we think about, what we ended up doing was we took all of those fun determinants and we said, you guys did such a great job identifying all of these actions and behaviors that make sports fun. Now help us understand, how do they all fit together? And so we had them actually organize and pile sort them in whatever way made sense to them. And then we went back and we said, okay, there are 81 things. They can't all be the most important to fun. Some are going to be really, really important and some are going to be less important. So we need to understand how important are each one of these things relative to all of the other determinants. And so what we found was that they actually organized these 81 actions and behaviors, these fun determinants, into 11 fun factors. And so the most important fun factor is trying hard, followed by positive team dynamics, positive coaching, learning and improving, games, and practices. And so if you notice, we have things like trying your best and competing, like I mentioned before. We have things like being challenged to improve and get better at your sport and learning from mistakes. So these are things that we may not originally have associated with fun, but this is what the kids were actually telling us. They want to get better. They want to be put in an environment where they're allowed to compete, where they're allowed to work hard and try their best, and they're learning from mistakes, and they have a coach that'll allow them to make mistakes without, screaming at them and berating them in front of their teammates, right? So all of these things are really, really important when it comes to creating this fun experience. And we also have team friendships, mental bonuses, game time support, team rituals, and swag. So like I said, we have 81 determinants. They're organized into 11 factors. And of course, swag makes the list, right? It has to. So with all of this data, though, we ended up creating, our system created these really robust 3-dimensional maps that when you take a step back and you start to look at them, and again, we're not going to get too deep into the science on this, but the overarching theme here is that there are 4 general sources of fun. So we have our context specific factors, which make up games and practices. We have those internal sources of fun that are really kind of driving that internal motivation, that intrinsic motivation, that inside drive that kids have to want to get better, that want to try hard. We have the social sources of fun. So we have positive team dynamics, team friendships, and team rituals. And then we have the external sources of fun of positive coaching, game time support, and swag. So oftentimes as parents, sometimes we think as coaches, their job starts when they get on the ice and it stops when they get off the ice, or it starts when they get on the bench at games and it stops when they get off the bench. But we have to understand that there are a lot of things that go into creating this experience. And that's where associations are it's really important to kind of build that culture where parents are engaged, where coaches are engaged, and it's all with the player-centered focus, right, to create the best experience for these kids. And so when we ranked all of those 81 determinants, irrespective of any of the factors that they were organized within, what we found was that trying your best and working hard were the top 2 most important factors. And if you notice, competing is at 13, learning from mistakes. But if you notice, there's a determinant that's missing here that we kind of were surprised by, and that was winning, right? And so we as adults tend to put a lot of pressure and a lot of weight on our wins and losses, and the program's wins and losses, and a coach's wins and losses. Oftentimes we put more emphasis on winning than the kids actually do when it comes to what creates that fun experience for them. So if you notice that the majority of these determinants here were actually process oriented, right? So it's all about creating the process, focusing on the process, the outcomes will happen, right? So if we focus on creating this positive, fun experience where kids are motivated to push themselves outside of their comfort zone, knowing that they can make a mistake and they're not going to get screamed at, then they're going to develop more. And that's what they're telling us is actually more fun. And so when we looked at these, we wanted to make sure that we had equal representation from girls and boys, from kids that played rec, kids that played travel, and younger kids and older kids. And when we did that, we wanted to see, like, what's the difference between these groups. And what we found was that across the board, trying hard, positive team dynamics, and positive coaching remained the top 3 most important factors, no matter who the kids were, right? So whether they're girls or boys, whether they are playing rec, whether they're playing travel, younger kids or older kids, these 3 factors were the most important factors. And so we wanted to make sure that trying hard may look different for an 8-year-old than it does for a 16-year-old. Or 8-year-old, it may be, that competing and trying hard, maybe that it's sharks and minnows, but for a 16-year-old, it's a battle drill out of the corner, right? So it's how are we creating the environment? And the environment might look a little bit different, but the underlying principles across the board, what the kids want, they want to try hard. They want to have those positive team dynamics and be surrounded by a positive coach. And then we had these secondary and tertiary tiers of importance. Still important, but just not nearly as important as creating the environment that allows the kids that fosters those top 3 factors. So the big takeaway is that kids are actually more similar than they are different, which is a good thing for coaches and parents when we think, okay, there's 81 things that we have to focus on. That's a lot, right? But if we try to focus on just creating and fostering the trying hard, positive team dynamics, positive coaching, learning and improving, you're going to improve the experience for kids. But the big thing that we also looked at was differences between kids and adults. And so kids and parents, so the perceptions of parents, what they believe was fun for their kids, or how important these things were for their kids, was pretty well aligned with the kids. We saw a big disconnect between some coaches and players. And so the younger players and the coaches of younger players were actually pretty well aligned with one another. But once we started to get past that age of 13, there was a big disconnect between what the coaches thought was fun for the players and what the players were actually saying. So the players, even as they got older, were saying that trying hard is the most important factor to fun for them. And coaches ranked it as 6. They were like, there's no way that my kids are going to say, trying hard is the most important to fun. I can't get them to try hard if, I'm yelling at them, I'm screaming at them, chasing them around the ice, banging my stick, just for them to give me some effort. And they're not doing it. There's no way that's fun for them. And so what I want to do is just quickly show a couple of videos here, that this is something that we see oftentimes. I'm guilty. I did this as a kid, this drill as a kid. I am guilty of doing it as a coach before I knew any better. And one of the things that I wanted to just kind of point out is that as parents and as coaches, drills that look really neat tend to make us feel good, right? It makes us think that, or it makes us feel like, yeah, you know what, they're getting better at their stops and starts. They're getting better at the breakout because they can do a 5-on-0 breakout, right? But when does it translate into a game? And are the kids actually having fun while they're doing it? And so this is where we start to make that link between fun and development. And so if you see a drill like this, again, we've all done this one, and I'm sorry if the video is a little bit choppy over Zoom, but this is something that we've all done, like I said, and as parents, this is what we kind of perceive a practice should look like, right? But when we look at the fun determinants on the side of trying hard and learning and improving, what we notice when we think about what does this environment foster and facilitate, they're exercising and being active, and they're maybe staying, getting in shape and staying in shape if they're actually trying hard enough. But if you notice, the effort is really not there in this environment because there really isn't competing. There's really not a whole lot of decision making. It's not a fun game. This is not fun for players. This is not fun, right? And we know that because look at how many fun determinants are actually being fostered and facilitated. If you compare that with a drill that looks like this or a game that looks like this, it's very chaotic, right? It doesn't look neat and nice. But when we think about what determinants are actually being fostered and facilitated, way more, right? And so that all goes into how we now look at the 5 elements of a good practice. What we know now is that the other 4 elements outside of fun are actually components of fun. And so as coaches and as parents, when we're looking for what kind of an experience do we want to create for our kids in our practice environment, this is what we're looking for. Because at the end of the day, we really want to make that connection that fun is development. And development, when it's done correctly, is fun. Okay. And so I don't know that this will work, but if you guys are interested, and I can throw this up at the end as well, but if you take a picture of that QR code, it will take you to a video that Amanda Visick did for our USA Hockey Coaches Clinic, but it's on YouTube. And anytime we put any new stuff out with the research, it's on Twitter with those 2 hashtags as well. So sorry if I went over. I have no idea when I started.
Heather, that was really, really good. The couple things that, me just take is the chaotic part. That was probably as somebody who's been around hockey and coaching for, going on 13 years, that's exactly how I was when I started, pointing, clicking, this is how it should look. But it wasn't until I started having some of that chaos out on the ice and letting them make the mistakes and creating that environment is when we really started to see the results. And, there's nothing better than there's nothing better than the kid coming off the ice, smiling and saying he was challenged and he wants to try to learn how to do something better. So you really nailed on a lot of stuff that's really great for all hockey, but especially for the AMHA. So thank you so much, Heather.
Absolutely.
Oh, Adam, can I just chime in one thing? I joke with Heather all the time. Anytime I see a clip about fun, I pause my TV and take a clip and send it to her. But, she talked about we're afraid that if we let kids have fun, they're going to dance on the ice like the goalie was, dance on the bench. And my favorite clip that I sent her this year was in the World Series, right? Brett Phillips walk-off single, Rosarena gets caught in the rundown, scores. You have a grown man doing airplanes in the outfield, right? And they interview him. And he's like, I just got caught up in the moment. Next thing you know, I'm doing airplanes in the outfield. And it's just so much fun. So much fun. right? If a grown man's allowed to do it, I think we should allow our 11-year-olds to do it.
Yeah.
Hey, Adam, I'll just chime in too real quick. The one thing that I love about this study, and I don't know if Heather totally like put an exclamation part about it, but what this study found was if you took a rec player and a AAA player, fun was still defined the same. The hard work, the team dynamics, the good coaching. Boys and girls, everyone says, oh, they're girls. They just, boys and girls define fun the exact same way. And old players and young players define fun the exact same way. And I think that's really important as we go through. Well, we're playing AA and AAA hockey. This is serious. We can't have fun. And really what Heather's study shows, it's just the opposite, right? So beginners, people that have been into it, old, young, female, male, fun is kind of it's a thread that runs through everything the same. And I think we just need to keep that in mind. And to me as a coach, as a youth coach, that really helped me, because I think if you structure your environment to allow to have fun, and no matter what, development is going to occur. So fun is development, development is fun. It's reciprocal. And I think that's really important for youth coaches and families to understand.
And let me just say one thing on that. I think it's important when you say structure the development for fun, that's got to be from top to bottom. It's something that we're striving to do. And, we want not only our players to have fun, but we want our coaches to have fun, and we want our parents to have fun. We want everybody to enjoy being at the rink and really enjoy how fun this sport is, because, I'm 37 now, and I remember some of the fun things of being a 10-year-old playing hockey over anything else, over my college career, over my pro career, over my coaching career. It's those fun memories that I'm telling. It's so important to realize, and we were talking about this before we started with everybody, is don't let this experience pass you by, because it goes really, really fast. As both a parent, now that I have a 7 and 5-year-old, and as a player, it goes really, really fast. Drink it in, enjoy it. Heather, you are awesome. Please come visit us here as soon as you're allowed. We would love to have you. Your smiling is contagious. So thank you. All right. Well, we're going to switch gears now and bring in Kristen Wright. So Kristen and I and Kenny have worked alongside each other for many years now. They were instrumental helping us in Fairbanks, Alaska with Hockey Club Fairbanks, and eventually making that program a model association under USA Hockey, and really, instrumental in helping me learn from them and always being a phone call away and answering my questions, as stupid as they are sometimes. Kristen and Kenny have been the ones that I've known the longest and have always been there for me. So I'm really excited that she's going to take the time. So Kristen, whenever you're ready, take over.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. It's been great working with you as well. And, Kenny talked about the myths of player development, and Heather talked about, what is fun and how do we create the environment where the kids are going to have fun. And for us, a piece of that is, and actually it's an expectation that we have of our associations, that they're going to provide high performance standards for everything they do. You guys are super lucky to have Adam, who not only reaches out to us to ask questions, brings us in to talk to you, is always trying to learn and get better. And we want him to create that high performance environment for every one of your athletes, right? And we're not saying, that's, let's make sure all these kids, we're worried about making some special team. It's more what environment we create is making sure that each kid reaches their developmental ceiling and stays in the sport, right? Because at the end of the day, we want all of these kids to stay in the sport as long as possible. And as Heather just told us, the main reason they're going to stay is if they're having fun. And so when we look at the 5 elements of practice design that Heather showed and how they tie to that environment, the one thing that I think is really important that we haven't talked about yet today is creating a player-centered environment, right? How do we set up practices? How do we make sure what our players are experiencing every day is about them getting better, about giving them, those elements of fun, making sure they're challenged, making sure we're preparing them for the game. Because at the end of the day, practices are where kids learn. And that's where they're going to learn how to find success in games on the weekend, right? And we want to make sure we set those practices up in the best possible way. And one of those pieces, and I think the word that we've used so far is chaotic. I prefer to use unpredictable, because when we say practices need to be game-like, well, the game of hockey is unpredictable, right? There's some patterns, right? There are things that happen, but we want our kids to learn those patterns. But at the end of the day, there's always an opponent on the ice in the game of hockey. And we don't know what they're going to do, right? And we have teammates, and sometimes we don't know what they're going to do. And so we want to set up practices and drills within practice that allow our kids to make decisions. Should I carry the puck? Should I pass the puck? Should I escape? Where is the pressure coming from? And so we want coaches to set up unpredictable environments. And those really, in turn, end up challenging the player. Because if we just tell the kids where to go or what to do, they're not actually learning. And same goes with how we give feedback and how we communicate with the kids. We feel that so often we tell kids everything. We tell them the answer. We tell them where to go. We tell them what they did right or wrong. And that's not player-centered. That's coach-centered, right? So if Coach Kristen tells the kid, hey, next time, make sure you pass to Johnny, that's about me. I made the decision. I told them what to do. And at no point did that kid's brain have to start turning. Instead, I could say, hey, Heather, what did you see before you made that pass? What other options did you have? Could you have passed to Johnny? Now Heather has to think, right? And as parents, you all want your kids to be better thinkers, better hockey players, right? Because you want them to find success in something that they find fun. So for me, that chaoticness is really creating unpredictability through the environments you set up and a challenging environment. And one way we want to make sure we set up a challenging environment a lot of times is using smaller spaces, right? A lot of people call it station-based practice, but you can divide the ice up in a bazillion different ways. And I'm sure you've seen it at different practices and different age levels, that you're going to use different spaces of the ice so that your kids can see different angles of the same drill or skill. But also, when kids are in smaller spaces, it gives them the opportunity to be challenged, right? They have to make decisions quicker. They're going to have more body contact, which is great, because in games, there's going to be body contact, or at the older age levels, body checking. And there's also body checking at the younger age levels, just like tripping. There's penalties, it happens. And so we want to set up our kids in environments where they have to, have that close contact with that other player, with the other team, right? Where there is that challenge, where there is that relay race, whatever it may be. And so you can set it up in all of these different ways. And same goes with practice, right? You're going to use different spaces. And, at the end of the day, the practice will have a goal. It always has to be fun. We say everything that you put into practice has to be fun. It can't be, oh, we're going to do the fun at the end, like it's dessert, right? The first thing on the ice should be fun, whether that's free play, so those kids get that environment to have the time and space to make their own decisions. We're huge proponents of starting off practice with a small area game or a relay race or something along those lines, right? Like, let's make it fun right away. The kids shouldn't have to wait. It's only a 60-minute practice, and then get into whatever the things are going to be that relate back to the goal of that practice. So, Adam knows that. I know Adam likes to incorporate free play and small area games, and just want to make sure you all know that that's what we want you all doing. And as you do that, we think about the benefits that come from using these smaller spaces. You'll see the things in red: game-like, challenging, repetitions, decision-making, and fun are those 5 elements. But we also, with using smaller spaces, we can get more kids on the ice. So each kid gets more ice time. More coaches are more involved, right? That player to coach ratio becomes better. A lot more puck battles and body contact, like I talked about. And those environments are definitely more engaging. And sometimes as a parent, it looks a little bit overwhelming. So that's the chaotic side for us, watching a practice that might have multiple teams or multiple things going on at once can be a little bit overwhelming, but that's the environment we think is best for kids to learn and develop in. And so when we look at what you can coach in small sided spaces, it's really everything. Raushi touched on the 4 roles and, how that's important for our players. You can work on skills, you can work on game concepts, breakout, forecheck, all of those types of things in smaller spaces. And when the kids get more space, it's going to be easier for them because they're going to have more time than they were taught in, right? So you want them challenged in practice so the game actually feels easier. Again, kids having success in games is a huge part of having fun developing and getting better. And so just going to show a couple of videos let's see, of what that might look like. So with this, and it might skip a little bit, but it's a basic monkey in the middle drill, right? When we think about fun, right, these kids are trying hard, right? The kid's trying to get the puck back. The other kids are trying to find space and move the puck. And so at the end of the day, drills like this not only are fun, all the kids are involved, but they're also working on hockey concepts, right? Whether that's finding open space, whether that's puck support, moving without the puck, stick on puck, sticks and passing lanes, all of those things you want your kids to learn, they're learning in this very small space in a very simple drill. And then this drill, right? So if we, sometimes people say, oh, the kids are having too much fun. I don't believe that. That's a good thing. I think everyone wants to have too much fun all the time. And so this is an example of that. These kids are competing and trying super hard, and it's absolutely fun. So we call this defend the bucket. Right. And at the end of the day, I don't believe that kids can ever have too much fun. Right. And we want our kids to be competitive and try hard. And so this is an example of how this coach set up an awesome environment for these kids to not only get better at a hockey concept, right? Body contact, edge work, moving, all those things, but in a way that we know these kids are having fun and trying hard. So with that, let me stop my share and really just reiterate that the different environment that we set up, how we coach our players, at the end of the day, the goal is to be player centered. The goal is for our players to have the best possible environment to learn and get better. And sometimes it's going to be chaotic. And sometimes it's going to be quote unquote too much fun. But that's what we want. And so I'm going to hand it back to Adam, and hopefully there's some questions for the group, and we'd be happy to answer anything you might have.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Kristen. And again, thank you for always picking up your phone or letting me text and ask questions. You know that I always have plenty of them. So thank you. I think a big thing there is just some of those videos. I'm not sure which team it was, but they were doing the monkey in the middle. And I mean, those look like Division I or pro hockey players. I mean, I hear you walk through the rink and, that doesn't look right. Or if they can do it at a Division I level or a pro level, I mean, you guys have all seen NHL videos. Hopefully, if you haven't, YouTube, Tampa Bay Lightning doing little 3-on-3s in a small area. It's fun, it's competitive, and the better players in the world are good in small areas. And
so Adam, to that effect, on our Twitter account during the World Junior Tournament, one of the most watched clips that we had, and I loved it myself, was our World Junior team starting practice by playing backward skating tag.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I've even mentioned that I just wrote that down during Kristen's presentation, but hopefully everyone on this call knows that our Team USA just won the World Juniors. And Kenny, I guess since you're on the screen, just tell us kind of what that means for USA Hockey, because you've been there for a long, long time. Or Joe, any of you guys can tell me exactly in your guys' office on your conference calls after they win that gold, what is going through your mind and where's the trajectory of what's working?
It's funny you say that, Joe. Joe and I actually had a conversation about this team because each of our regional managers on the youth and boys side gets to have a birth year that they follow from 10 years old basically through the World Juniors, and the oldest group that this one would have been was Joe's birth year. So one of the things he gets to do is be a coach on the Five Nations team and the Halinka team. And, a fair number of those kids end up making our World Junior team. As great as our NTDP is, again, talk about excelling early, right? We're picking that team at 15 years old. We know those kids aren't all going to end up being the best players at 20 years old. And, this year was the most amount of players we've ever had from our NTDP on our World Junior team, and it's still only 14 players, right? So we know there's that second wave of kids, those late bloomers, the extra crop. And Joe B and I actually had a great conversation about this group because, they were so close. We've only won the Holinka tournament once, and this group actually had it won, and it was in Edmonton in that rink. Canada scored after time expired to tie the game, and the refs allowed it. They did not use the video replay, and so they ended up losing it in overtime. And Joe will tell, I think it was either Doc or Cousins maybe who scored the winning goal in overtime. And so for everyone to say Canada had the best world junior team ever, and we were going to be lucky to keep the championship game to 6-1 and then go out there and beat them 2-0. I actually got a little emotional over it, and I know Joe did too, because we know so many of those kids, and they're such great kids, and to see where we've become. And I know you're familiar, Adam. I used to do a presentation of where we stacked up in the world, and we weren't holding our weight per se based on what the resources we have compared to the Finns, the Swedes, and everyone else. And lo and behold, I don't do that presentation anymore, because now within the last 10 years, we've have the most gold medals in the World Juniors. And it's I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it, how awesome it is. And as our boss likes to say, we hope other countries hear the train, right? Because we're just getting started. The train is just leaving the station right now. We're going to keep getting better and better. And it's awesome to see.
And the one thing that I noticed that really, and I was texting you guys during that game, and I also got goosebumps because, we're all proud American hockey people, and you're playing your biggest rival, the Canadians. But one thing I noticed was just the amount of puck possession and the dynamic of our skating and the creativity, I think, showed tenfold in the gold medal game against, the David versus Goliath. I mean, I don't know, we looked like a better team for the whole entire game. And I don't think anyone, Canadians or Americans, even argued that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'll let Joe jump in.
No, so Adam, those are great observations. And what's interesting, and I think what USA Hockey's real happy about is that, we could have lost the Finland game. We could have lost the Canadian game. But what's interesting is our last 10-year run, how successful we've been. But exactly what Kenny said, it says that the United States now, we feel we don't have 20 kids that can play in that tournament. We feel we have 40, and it's our depth across the country. It's programs like Austin adding and doing what you guys are doing. The state of Texas, I've worked in Dallas for a long time too. They're starting to attract the best athletes in Dallas. Baseball is losing momentum. Football is losing momentum. And across the country now with, Vegas coming online, Florida, and just the growth and boom of not only hockey, but of quality of coaching, quality of youth programming, quality of experience for a lot of these kids. What we're finding is more kids are enjoying hockey, more families are enjoying hockey to get to that end point at 20-year-old athletes. We have a lot of them now. We are catching up. We're really closing the gap with Canada. I want to make one more point too. If you go back to that drill Kristen had on, the thing that people have to understand, so a stupid little monkey in the middle 2-on-1 game, a lot of old school hockey guys like us could roll your eyes and go, oh, monkey in the middle. Why does my kid need to know monkey in the middle? But what we're finding is that now coaches are teaching monkey in the middle. What's a power play, Adam? It's how do you break down a 2-on-1? What's a breakout? It's how to get open and show a target and find open space. That's a breakout, not stand on the hash marks. What's a good penalty kill? Well, head on a swivel, active stick. And we're getting better youth coaches. We're getting better coach education to teach the subtleties inside these small area games to produce better hockey players.
Yeah. And the one thing that I'm trying to remember my train of thought, but so and I think no, it's fine. But the best part of those is the coaches. I've noticed is I have a hard time going back or thinking about going back to, just how different it was, 10, 15 years ago, because as a coach, it wasn't as fun. It's way more fun to be involved in these small area games or teaching it at a smaller level or in a competitive environment where your challenge as a coach to teach them in a fun environment. You want to make sure it's fun. And at the same time, when the kids are having fun and they're being competitive, they don't even realize it. So for me, anyways, let's get to some questions. So some good ones. Joel, we'll start to you. And maybe if you want to sift through them and and pass them off to the crew you can. But what's really, really good is, in a program, I know you guys have experienced, but you get, the old school mentality. Maybe it's amongst coaches or, more coaches. How have you guys how have you found a way to get through that mentality, that old school mentality where, it's not 20 years ago, it's 2021 and things are different. What have you guys experienced along the way to help educate your programs and your coaches and your players and everybody involved?
So I'll try to be really succinct. I know Kenny might want to jump in on this one too, but I think it's a three-pronged approach that we've had at USA Hockey to deal with what we call maybe the dinosaurs or the old school guys. The first one is we don't change them. They're too hard-headed. They're too set in their ways. So we just have patience and let them die off and graduate with their kid, which is sad. But basically that's one way to deal with them. You just ignore them and let them graduate out, right? The other thing is what Kristen said is it's so important to be player centered. And what we have found as soon as you can change the coach's mindset, that it's not about the coach at center ice with the grease board. It's not about your favorite drills you did 20 years ago. Good coaching now is player centered, but really asking yourself two things. What do the kids right in front of my face, what do they need? And then how do I deliver that, right? Like what is their deficiencies? And every group's different, every age level is different. And then how can I do that? And then again, make it player centered, right? Make it about the kids, make sure that they're getting repetitions, make sure they're getting a lot of different looks with that, pattern recognition and decision making. And if I can slowly remove myself from that process, now we're doing a better job. And the coaches that understand that, like new technology, I know Kenny always talks about it. Would anybody on this call, get a knee surgery the way they did it 12 years ago? Would anybody take a doctor's advice, on braces or filling a cavity the way they did it 30 years ago? And everybody laughs at that. But it's interesting because normally the groups of families that appreciate technology, modern thinking, and a new way of doing things like Heather's study, those families, those groups of people really see change and really see improvement quick. So educating the latest technology, showing people how it works. And then finally, this is probably the best medicine for coaches, is that when old school coaches now, I think, play against modern coaching, you can't defend it. You can't pre-scout it. Hey, we're going to play this team that, is X's and O's. And if you have the puck, Adam, I have to stand here. The breakout pass has to go to the hash marks. Those teams are kind of now becoming easy to play because they're so predictable, right? The teams that are unpredictable, when you play against a bunch of kids that can move, think, problem solve, manipulate, you can't pre-scout that. And then I think a lot of older school coaches are seeing that. They appreciate that. They understand the new technology, their thought process. Therefore, then they implement it now to help themselves. And now they're playing the new modern game. And so, it's easy. You can just ask an old school guy, look at an NHL game. How many teams dump and chase? Well, none of them, because it's all about puck possession. How many teams have a fourth line grind line? Like I grew up with the Detroit Red Wings. None of them, because the Vegas Golden Knights need four lines that are skilled and can skate. So, when you look at it through those lenses, people acquire this type of philosophy much easier. If you refuse to look through that lens, there's really not a lot you can do.
Sure. And I think whoever wants to answer this on the panel, but I know Kenny loves this topic, so maybe it's a good one for Kenny, but being in a rush, thinking, I'm so, I got to leave. I got to go somewhere, the grass is greener. I know you guys have experienced a ton of that. I know it's always a very hot topic, when we are together and can you just touch on that, on the experiences you've seen from all age groups?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I always like to talk about, I call it my Chicago banner experiment. You walk into rinks in Chicago, at least when we were able to go to rinks in Chicago, and there's one particular rink, for example, has all the Mite state champions for the last X amount of years. And I have a fairly good handle on our player pool in our country. of who the best 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old players are, because it's part of my job. And I look at these banners of all the state champions for Mite hockey or 8U hockey in Chicago. And I do my math and I'm like, all right, this group should be about 17, 18 years old based on whatever birth year it was, right? And I'm like, who are these kids? Where are they? Like, out of 100 banners, there might have been 2 names that I recognized in the whole rink, right? Because, hey, we won the 8U state championship. Well, again, like I say, when you talk about the highest levels, no one cares, right? Joe used to get them. I used to get them when we coached college hockey. And you get a kid who on his letter says, my Adam team won our state championship. I don't give a shit. So excuse my language. I know we got some kids on here, but it doesn't matter, right? Coaching college hockey, what are you doing the year before you get to me? Because that's what's important. No NHL GM has ever drafted a kid in the first round because he was awesome at 9 years old, right? There may be some who were awesome at 9. Again, probably not many, but that's not why they're drafted. They're drafted because they're really good hockey players at 17, 18, 19 years old. And one quick story, when you talk about the older kids always trying to rush to get to that next level. I tell this story a lot, and you've heard it, Adam, at our Five Nations tournament, which is our second group of our best 16-year-olds. A kid at the end of the tournament asked me, Coach, what do you think I should do next year for what team where I play? And I said, well, I don't know what your options are. I said, I don't know what your options are. So what are they? He goes, well, I could play midget hockey again, or 16U hockey for my second year, or I can, try to make it into the USHL. And I looked straight in the eye. I said, do you want to score 4 goals or do you want to score 40 goals? Of course, he said, I want to score 40 goals. What kid doesn't want to score 40 goals? And I said, it's not even a question. Go play midget hockey. Play 16U hockey. You're going to score 40, 50, maybe 60 goals. You go to the UHL, you're going to score 4. Well, I was wrong. He went to the USHL and he scored 2, right? So there's a kid who was a goal scorer, a top line player, rushed to get to the next level and became a 4th line player for the rest of his career. Because sometimes when you lose that scoring and that playing and that confidence, it's hard to get back, right? So stay at the level. That's kind of the clip that I didn't get to show. Stay at the level you're at and learn to dominate it, right? If you become a dominant player at 15, you're a dominant player at 16, you're a dominant player at 17, there's a good chance you're going to be a dominant player at 18. But when we go from dominant player at 16 to a role player at 18 who's surviving in a league because it's over his head and learns to sit the bench, fire pucks off the glass, fire pucks into the zone, that's what you become.
Yeah, and I think that's so important that, I think a lot of us are scared to have that player who's having extreme success, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing. I try to communicate that as, this player is now getting an opportunity to learn how to be the best player. You might not ever get that opportunity again.
And one other quick story, because I have to jump. I have another call in 8 minutes with another organization tonight. So there's a kid named Ethan Walters who's going to be a Division I college hockey player. He didn't start skating till he was 13 in Southern California. He was a BMX rider, won some BMX things as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, and then went to a birthday party at 13 and involved ice skating. He's like, this is awesome. So there's an athlete who took up skating at 13. At 17, he was one of the top 40 kids at our 17 camp. So there's another one. And you talk about people worrying about falling behind. I have a 6-year-old, just like you have a 7 and a 5-year-old. And I can't tell you, everyone's, oh, he must be skating already. Where's he playing? Hasn't even put skates on. And you know what? If he does put skates on, and when he puts skates on, I'm not worried that he's going to fall behind because he didn't start till 7, 8, or 9. But he runs around, he does parkour, he does ninja gym. So I know he's got good balance and he's somewhat athletic. So if he picks it up, he picks it up. Big deal, right? I'm not worried about where he's at when he's 6 years old.
Thanks a lot, Kenny. And I'd like to get a visual of you doing parkour sometimes, but we'll leave that for next Zoom call. Kenny, I know you have another call, but thank you for your time and thanks for everything you do for developing hockey players in this country. Good luck with your other call.
Thank you. Have fun with the rest of this one. See you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, we'll do a couple more, then we'll let everyone off. But Kristen or Heather, you both, I think something that's really important, and I would like our membership to hear is learning from mistakes and how important that is to A, be able to make a mistake, and then B, make it again, and then C, how you get better for making that mistake. And having that allowance on the ice as a program. We want you to make that mistake, and where do we learn from it? Where do we go so that these kids can be successful? So I know you guys both touched on it. If any of you guys want to elaborate a little bit more on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think so. Dean Krelar is a he's an expert in physical literacy, and he says this one line that I absolutely love, that confidence is built on a fun and challenging pathway built with both successes and failures, right? And so it's making sure that kids have the ability, or we've created a safe, safe physical and psychologically safe environment for kids to push themselves, right? To push themselves past that comfort zone, so that they're going to fail. And if they're not failing, then we're not pushing them far enough, right? And so we kind of talk also about this this challenge zone that we really want to find with kids when it comes to their development, where if you push them, if their skill level is up here and the challenge is down here, they're bored, right? They're going to be very successful. It's beneath where their skill level is. If their skill level's down here and the challenge is way up here, then you put them in the panic zone, right? And they're going to disengage because they don't feel like they can actually, do this without failing in front of everybody. There's no chance of being successful. And so we really just want to find that skill zone. Their skill level is here. We want to get that challenge just outside of their skill zone. So they're going to fail, and then they're going to succeed. And then we have to challenge them a little bit more. And so when it comes to really kind of pushing that development and pushing that growth, failure is absolutely a part of that. And I think, making it in sort of a part of your culture to say that, like, if you guys aren't failing, then we're not pushing you hard enough, or you're not trying hard enough. So it's kind of finding that balance and figuring out where that challenge zone is. I think that's where you really build that confidence and show kids that failure is a part of success, the necessary part of success.
Yeah, and I think, Heather, all of those things are so important. And as you all as parents, your role in making sure that your kids know that, failure, or whatever we want to call it, if we, a lot of people try to use a more positive term, but failure is a part of them getting better. It's going to be a part of the development process. And you as parents have the ability to remind your kids of that all the time, that, it's part of learning to fall down and need to get back up. And if you're not falling down, then you're not getting better at what you're trying to do, right? You're not going to learn how to flip your skateboard over and land on it the first time, right? It's going to take a few tries. And for some reason, sometimes within hockey, it's a little bit harder for our kids to realize that. And so just making sure that you maintain your kids' confidence by reminding them that being prepared and trying hard things in practice is going to be like the way that they're going to get better.
Sure. And we'll just leave. We'll have one more question, then we'll let you guys, if you want to say bye or finish it with anything, that'd be great. And just so all the people on here know, we are recording this and we will put it on our website, because me as the hockey director, I want all of our coaches and players to see this. And then I would love for all the parents to see it. I pretty much want everyone to see it, but not everyone could make it. So everyone, we're going to record it, and please share. If you're a coach, share with your team, because there has been a lot of great things discussed. So the main thing, I think, I can't remember who said it, but what really stuck out, and I actually got a text on it from one of our people in our program, was how much team dynamics are more important to fun than almost anything, and creating that culture. That is something we're trying to strive, is that club culture, and how to have a consistent club culture. Can you dive into just how you've seen programs, even maybe how you saw, Fairbanks from where it was to where it is now, to markets you've seen along the way, where, if you really put a strong club culture and emphasis on how far it could go, if everyone's pulling the same rope?
I always think that's a great one for Joe. I know Joe is super passionate about club culture and what it takes to build that parent, coach, army, all of the things, everybody on the same bus. So Joe, I think you you knocked this one out of the park normally.
All right, and again, I'll try to be succinct on this one. So I think, Adam, what you're thinking and what's so important with club culture is, first of all, I like the steps that you guys are taking in the sense that you're communicating right now. You're talking to a lot of people within your club. I think you're planning, you're writing down a lot of your programming, what 6U, 7U, 8U looks like all the way up to, 14U. That's very important. But what we see for successful clubs is that step there, that's the easy step. Talking to people and formulating what does Austin youth hockey want to look like, right? And then the tough part is actually living it and delivering it every day. And it's a process, it's a process of, putting action into or putting words into action. It's a process of you, Adam, as the hockey director, of surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded. It's trying to recruit and educate coaches that are like-minded and can deliver the style of play and the style of community that you want to have. And I think it's easy when we all go out and visit clubs. I'll sit in the parking lot and just watch the rink. And to me, a rink that has good club cultures, you have parents outside talking positively. You have kids running into the rink to get to off-ice sessions. You have consistent programming, so everybody kind of knows the expectations and everybody's on the same page. And then you walk into the lobby and there's energy, positive. Again, people are talking. There's not people with folded arms, mad about something. And if they are mad, that they have enough freedom and confidence to come up and talk to you as a hockey director to have good hockey discussion, because we're adults, and then I look at maybe a recreation program, and their practice is similar in types, everything that Heather and Kristen talked about. And then when I look at the A team and then the double A team, and that you're developing, Adam, 60 kids per age group, not just your top 12. There's off ice, there's coaching, there's video, and there's a clear pathway for your parents. How does my kid go from 6U to 14U in Adam's club? And what does it mean if I have to play in a B team one year, then maybe a double A team the next year, but then an A team? Is that a big deal? But what's the pathway? In clubs that have clear pathways, coaches that are delivering very similar experiences to all level of kids, hockey directors that understand long-term athlete development, get kids through puberty that are excited to go be a hockey player. To me, that's a good club culture. And that's a hockey director that's professional, that knows what he's doing. And it's a hockey director that's not just competing against, oh my God, my kids are going to move to Dallas. It's, I'm going to be the best youth sport experience here in Austin. My coaches are educated. My parents are communicated to, better than lacrosse, better than football, better than baseball, at a good price point. And that's really where club culture takes off. Once you get into that stratosphere, now you're in player development, right? Now you're really doing a good job.
Yeah. And, a couple things that really just on that, you covering that was, a clear pathway and kind of all the coaches, again, pulling the same rope on the same bus. And that's super important. And I know that as a hockey director, that's something that is clearly something that's, number one on our priority list is making sure, because we want that. We want to walk in the rink and the kids are learning the same and you're challenging, kids who can do this, they're doing that. And kids who can't do that, and Heather hit it right on the, nail on the coffin was, you're here and you want to be here and finding that balance. And that's definitely something that we're striving to do. And nobody ever said it was easy. I think the most important part is to know that, we are heading in that direction, Austin. We have the resources. We're going to get more resources. I think it's very clear that being able to get, Joe, Kristen, Heather, and Kenny on a call on a Sunday night, that they believe in what we're doing. They want us to do it. And, for one reason or another, they believe in me, but it's probably because I believed in what they're doing for so long. And, my ask to the club is let's keep pulling the same rope. Let's stay positive. Let's communicate. You said, like adults, that's super important. We should be able to have those hard conversations when we're at the rink. And I can't wait till you guys come visit, because today I walked into this beautiful new facility we have. It was 75 degrees. Our team of all Austin girls was in the championship game where, you know, Angie is just, you guys all know Angie. She's such a rock star. To see, you know, her hard work coming to fruition is like, you know, you talk about USA Hockey winning, giving you goosebumps. That kind of stuff gives me goosebumps. Watching Angie walk into the rink. We have a lot of positive influences. If there's negatives, they're not going to be around much longer, and we're going to keep surrounding your players with that, the like-minded people, the people we want around your child, developing them, making them into better people, and then better hockey players. You know, I still remember the coaches I had growing up, and I still talk to them, and I still look up to them, and that's how I want the kids in our program to remember our coaches. And we're going to work as hard as we can to get there. And there might be some bumps along the way because that's the way it goes. But, you know, we have the great foundation, and I'm lucky to walk into this foundation that was created by Joe and Angie and the rest of the crew that was already here. And, you know, my ask is just communicate, be positive around the kids, be positive. It's contagious. Just like negativity, that's contagious. Be positive. And, you know, we only have maybe a month and a half left here in this season. And we're really looking forward to, you know, what's going to come here. We're looking forward to getting you guys down here finally when you can travel again, because you guys have to see the new facility. You have to see some of these. We have some, you talk about swag, Heather, our new jerseys are awesome. You know, we're really trying to bring it next level with development first. And, you know, I'm a big believer, if you develop them right, you're just going to win. And I think Team USA showed that. So now I'm just blabbing, but thank you guys for your time on a Sunday night. Stay safe. As soon as you guys can travel again, please come and visit us. We'll have a high level coaching performance or a session and parent education, and when we can all be together again.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Adam.
All
Thanks,
right.
Adam.
See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.